Mike Todd recently gave a sermon message over the foundational principle that he put into his own personal life that helped him defeat a specific sin in his own life. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about or who I'm talking about, Mike Todd is the head pastor over at Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And for the past 7 weeks, he's been going through a series, and each message is titled something different: a fresh vision, fresh seed, fresh fruit, etc. And in this particular message, it was titled Fresh Foundation. And in this message, he gave his congregation what principle he had to put into place in order to defeat a pornographic addiction that he had. Now, most people would open the scriptures and turn to those and find in the Word, specifically in Galatians chapter 5, how we can kind of do that. What fundamental principle, foundational principle we should put into practice in order to defeat the fleshly desires, our sinful desires. But Mike Todd goes a completely different route. He says his foundational principle that he put into practice was giving the tithe. Now, I'm going to read a quote from him from this sermon where he says this: "Today, I want to talk to you about a foundational principle that made my whole world get larger, and more than my world, my heart be more turned towards the idea of God." He then goes on and says, "This one thing exposed my heart. It helped me solidify my priorities, and it honestly helped me defeat pornography." And he says, that principle is tithing. Guys, we have to understand that nowhere in the Bible does it say tithing helps us defeat any sin. Sexual sin, sin of anger, sin of whatever it is, theft, any of adultery, murder. No, tithing has nothing to do with defeating the desire of sin. But in Galatians chapter 5, starting in verse 16, it says this: "I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh." It does not say, give your tithe, and you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. No. And then it goes on and says, "For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident." And it goes through different works of the flesh: adultery, fornication, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, etc., wrath, etc. And then he says, "I also told you in the past time that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit," then he explains the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit." Mike Todd teaches a plethora of wrong teachings from theology and doctrine, but this one almost takes the cake in the sense of he's really trying to get his audience to tithe. And this comes from no surprise when you're dealing with a church that, even though Mike Todd says he is not a prosperity gospel pastor, his theology and doctrine and the way he teaches about the tithe lines up just with the rest of those health, wealth, prosperity gospel pastors. And I've personally come from one of those churches. And so I know this language and this lingo he's using, and it's dangerous. And to be clear, the New Testament does not say we have to tithe a specific percentage. It doesn't say we tithe 10%, 20%, 15%, 5%. It says that we should give with a cheerful heart, whatever that may look like. That is what the command is, to give cheerfully. So if it is 10%, maybe that's where you want to start. Go for it. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less, maybe it's nothing because you don't have a job. But whatever it is, don't allow pastors like Mike Todd to try and twist the scriptures and pervert the scriptures to make it seem like you have to give this 10%, you have to give this much money. Or if you give more than 10%, man, you're real holy, you're real good in the sight of the eyes of the Lord. Just be aware of Mike Todd and stay away from his teachings. Real quick, guys, if you enjoyed that video, would you please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing this video, getting it out to other people so everyone else can see how we can look at situations around us in a biblical way. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the encouraging words. And thank you for partnering and subscribing to BTteam Ministries.